The story today is called simply The Backrooms. I've heard the myths, the lore, and the stories of the backrooms, but I figured it was just all fake, not real, just another creepypasta. Well, one day I was working the night shift as a security guard at a hospital. It was not my shift, the guy that usually worked this shift had the night off, but I agreed to fill him in. Sitting at a monitor, rechecking all the cameras, and taking any random calls throughout the night. Finally, after an hour at the desk, I got up to use the bathroom and got myself some coffee on the way back to my desk since I figured it was going to be a long night. And so, I went to the bathroom not thinking anything of it and proceeded to the coffee machine to get my caffeine fix when I heard the scratching noise down the hall. At first, I figured I was imagining things with how long the night was, but when I heard it again, this time slowly getting louder to where it was impossible for me to ignore, I started to walk down the hall trying to figure out where the noise was coming from. I kept looking and looking. I continued to go towards where the locker room was, because that seemed to be where the scratching noise was coming from. I got to the locker room and went inside. Over by the lockers, there was an empty space, big enough to put an extra chair for sitting, a wall, right where the lockers were. I looked around under the desk, the lockers, on the floor, the ceiling, double checking that I wasn't going crazy or imagining it. But there was no denying it. The noise was coming from the wall. I looked up and down and finally felt around the wall. At first, nothing happened. But then, one second I was in the locker room, the next, I fell through the wall into an open office space that looked very similar to my workplace, but this one slightly different. The walls were all yellow, the fluorescent lights were brighter than normal, and the carpet was soggy, and it had a strong mildew smell to it. I started looking forward, looking around, and as far as I went, the walls, rooms, hallways all looked exactly the same. I looked at my phone, there was no signal. My battery was still good for a few hours, because I remember I had it plugged in. I pinched myself, and sure enough, I was awake. I then shouted for help, screaming, asking if anyone was there. Sure enough, there was no reply. I didn't wander too far from where I initially fell through the wall. I then slowly started to panic. Anyone in their right mind would be panicking. I closed my eyes and counted to 10 while I slowly breathed in and out, regaining my composure. I then started to walk around the offices and explore my surroundings, seeing what I could find. The loud buzzing from the lights was enough to drive me insane. The fact that the lights were so bright that my eyes were strained, the smell of the carpet on top of it, was enough to make me snap. I tried to think of a song I liked, friends of mine, my parents, anything to regain some sense of normalcy. I then had a dreaded thought. Surely this can't be the backrooms everyone was talking about, the creepypasta? The backrooms where it's endless hallways, non-stop fluorescent lights, mildew-soaked carpets, the rooms, the hallways going on forever, no end, an eternity of mazes? I nearly started to cry and scream on the top of my lungs. Hell no. If this really is the backrooms, I'm really, really effed up. With a high likelihood of me being stuck in this hell forever? Why me? After an hour of me panicking, crying, screaming, I forced myself to pull it together and continued to walk and explore as much as I could. I pulled out my flashlight and looked around at random things to see if it makes any difference. I honestly didn't know what to do at this point. Since nothing changed, I put it away, happy that at least that works in this godforsaken place. I looked around in different rooms. The only thing I saw in most rooms were office cabinets. In some rooms, they were just completely empty. Others, there was just a single chair in the room. The other ones, the cabinets were filled with random papers. And in others, just nothing. The hallways literally never stopped. They were endless. There were no windows. So the air in this place was really stuffy. I finally had to sit down and take another break. My breathing was ragged, and my head was dripping with sweat from the humidity, along with the fact that I was slowly getting hungry. I sat down and closed my eyes to finally rest. Hopefully, I would find a resolution to all of this really soon. Has there been days that passed, or merely just hours? When I finally woke up, I looked around. Still, there was nothing, nobody around. So I continued to walk forward down the hallway, searching for anything, if anybody was here. Which to my dismay, there was nobody, not a single soul. The lights were blaring down at me. My eyes were becoming more and more sensitive to the light. And at the same time, I realized that I was becoming hungry. Great. Another thing to worry about. I thought I had no food with me, so not only was I getting no signal on my phone, the battery was dead. I couldn't call for help. I also had no food, nothing to eat. It was becoming more and more difficult to see. The heat from the humidity in this building was causing me to sweat profusely. After hours of me wandering around, I soon realized that my chances of leaving this place were becoming slimmer and slimmer. No food, no help, nothing. I was gradually losing hope. Whatever this place was, I was stuck here, me alone, stuck in an endless maze of hallways. The humming buzz of the fluorescent lights, the humidity from the heat of the building, the carpet moldy and moist, with an old mildew smell which permeated throughout the entire area. I was in a maze of hallways, hallways that would never end. I realized soon enough that I was probably going to end up dead in here, lost and alone in a place that no one ever knew existed. No one would find me and no one would ever know what happened to me. After all, I'm just a security guard that worked the night shift at a hospital that somehow ended up in the back rooms. The back rooms. A place that wasn't supposed to exist. It was supposed to be lore. A fun, scary story among countless creepypastas. Well, I guess I learned the hard way that sometimes the stories you think aren't real are more real than you think. This is where my transmission ends. The end. Finally, after an hour at the desk, I got up to use the bathroom and got myself some coffee on the way back to my desk. Since I figured I was going. I then shouted for friends of mine, my parents, anything to regain some. It was supposed to be lore, a funny, scary story among countless creepy pastas. Wow, creepy pastas. This has been Gray Stories.